Today's session is a spotlight on both mental health and violence, and my slides are merely going to set the stage for a lot of content that you're going to follow up with through sites that I will highlight in this presentation or in the PDF version of these slides. So let's start with mental health. The burden of mental illness in the U.S. is among the highest of all diseases, and it is one of the leading causes of disability among adults. And the latest research that we have for adults is 2004 data, where 1 in 4 adults have a mental health disorder. And of those, 1 in 17 have a serious mental illness. And for children and adolescents, mental health also is a concern, and 1 in 5 children in the U.S. has a mental health disorder. The leading one is ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So everybody, people, including children and adolescents with untreated mental health disorders, are at a high risk for many unhealthy and unsafe behaviors. So mental health can be a precursor to substance use and abuse, alcohol, drugs, both licit and illicit, as well as having poor mental health is associated with greater violent behavior and self-destructive behavior, as well as suicide. And suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States for all groups, and the second leading cause of death among people ages 25 to 34. We're going to get more into these issues in our final session for emerging issues. So in a class like 7140, it is impossible to go into great depth for these leading public health priorities, and I don't want you to think that because we're not going into it, I don't think that they're important. I think they are so important, and I could spend years really trying to understand and delve into and investigate and even get a grasp of the research that's being done. But mental health is critical to our overall well-being, an individual's well-being. It is very difficult if you have poor mental health to build strong positive relationships on the interpersonal level, social relationships with families, loved ones, and others. And this is almost a cascade. When you have trouble with social and interpersonal relationships, the ability to live a full and productive life really becomes compromised. It has effects in every ripple, every advanced level of that ecological model. So impacts of mental health disorder, you cannot separate mental from the physical. They're inextricably linked. Evidence has shown that mental health disorders, most often depression, are strongly associated with risk, occurrence, management, progression, and outcomes of serious chronic diseases and health conditions. And this spans across all different types of chronic conditions, including diabetes, hypertension, stroke, heart disease, and cancer. And this association appears to be caused by mental health disorders that precede chronic disease. So chronic disease can intensify those initial symptoms of a mental disorder. So you can have mental health disorders can have harmful, long-lasting effects that translate into high social, psychosocial, and economic costs, not only for the people who are suffering with a mental disorder, but also their social circles, their families, their schools, workplaces, communities. When people are not feeling well and they're not mentally stable and not well, it is difficult to work. It is difficult to be present in the church, in the community, and as you withdraw, it is easier to go into a decline and a deterioration. So the good news is there are a number of mental health disorders that can be treated effectively. And the way to prevent mental health disorders is something that is gaining popularity among researchers and gaining attention. So the early diagnosis and treatment can actually help stave off, the intensity of consequences that can result from untreated mental disorders. So, and associated chronic conditions. It is imperative to ensure that we assess and address mental health so that life, the quality of life, the quality of years of life we live are good. It's not just a count, it is the quality is there. So in Healthy People 2020, we have leading health indicators with suicides being one, and I'm going to include in supplemental readings additional facts about mental health and suicide in particular, the Surgeon General's report on suicide, and then adolescence and in particular depression. But you know that Healthy People also has related topics in substance use and abuse, and there are also different topic areas within populations. So you'll want to explore Healthy People 2020, and they'll list all the entire associated objectives with mental health. Now, I want to segue at this point into the second topic that's highlighted and spotlighted in this session, and that is violence and injury prevention. Again, you can have an entire course, semester, year-long series of courses dedicated to this topic alone. So do not think that this is comprehensive by any means. It is just like a seminar tour of injuries and violence as it relates to the population. So unintentional injuries and those caused by overt acts of violence are among the top 15 killers for Americans across all age groups. I will include the chart for the leading causes of death by age group so that you can see that. Most people used to use the label accidents, but CDC has changed that and said unintentional injury because they're not merely acts of fate or just a natural part of life, because we know we can avoid car accidents or motor vehicle crashes by wearing seat belts, by having better technology and smarter cars, by avoiding texting and driving, drinking and driving, etc. That doesn't have to happen. Those aren't natural at all. So most events resulting in injury, disability, or death are predictable and preventable. So poisoning is a new leading cause of death in the injury category, and that includes overdose on prescription drugs, for example. That's under the category of poisoning. The injury and prevention objectives for 2020 in Healthy People represent a really broad range of issues, which if we would focus and really put a lot of attention and energy into this area, we could improve the overall health of the nation in a major way, because everybody is affected by it. And the volume of people affected by these avoidable, predictable, and preventable events could have a tremendous impact on the overall population. So determinants related to violence and injury related consequences on the individual level of influence, choices people make, such as what substances they use and consume, include alcohol and drugs, the risks we take, the behaviors we take. These are connected with factors that might relate to our social network groups, the norms of our society, the physical environment we live in, and this can definitely play a role in the number of injuries around us. The physical environment. The physical environment plays an important role in injury and violence rates as well. In the home and the community, if we have safe home protection, and make sure that our children are being reared in homes that are safe, or older adults have homes that are safe to avoid falls, we can affect the rates of injuries and related to falls, fires, burns. We can, as I mentioned before, take steps to avoid road traffic injuries, drowning. We can, implement policies that require fences. There are new tools to alert people about car seat deaths, so that if somebody forgets their child is sleeping in a hot car, these are ways that we can avoid these types of injury. Another one is violence. This is almost an entire separate topic, but it is one that we're going to just look at with injury today. And I'm going to turn your attention and focus to CDC. They are amazing, cutting edge, leading on teaching and communicating and providing training and evidence-based resources and research, all dedicated to violence prevention. And you're going to be doing an activity related to provided through the CDC that I'll mention in the upcoming slides. Finally, on the macro level, access to services. This is a huge determinant in health when looking at violence and injury prevention, because if you are in an area that has limited injury-related care, there are vast parts of the world that don't have gunshot wounds to treat. The U.S. leads in gunshot wounds. So we have special hospitals that are equipped to deal with those on a daily basis. And not only that, we have to have pre-hospital acute care ranging from rehab, rehabilitation through death, long-term disability. When people are in violence-related things, you're going to have a number of survivors that will have long-term severe injuries. So what I mentioned for your activity today or through Monday, 8 a.m., I'd like you to participate by completing the online module called Principles of Prevention, and you can email me the certificate when you complete that module by either just taking a picture with your phone and emailing it, or downloading it from your computer. And the website is right there. It will also be in the Brightspace Desire to Learn. And then I want you to look at Veto to Violence, the app, Community Healthism. And I just want you to see some really innovative things that CDC is doing in terms of violence. Now you might say, we're not really going into and delving into a lot of the subjective content, the really content specific, looking at things, like I said, that will be more, it will be addressed more in depth in the emerging issues in final course. So there are a couple things that you're going to note that changed in that draft agenda that I circulated very early on. I knew that this would happen. We're going to have to make adjustments, not a problem. We're not going to be watching the unnatural causes. Instead, I want you to take that online Principles of Prevention module. Please email me the completed certificate that you'll earn. I'd like you to also participate in the open discussion thread that I have about mental illness and violence in general. A lot of things are always going on. We have the acquittal of the Baltimore officers in the police brutality case against Freddie Gray, and perhaps you'll want to talk about that. There are other notable, newsworthy issues that you might want to raise. And then I want to let you know that I will release all of my feedback and exam grades by Monday at 8 a.m. at the same time. So in case you're really anxious to know, I'm really pleased. There's a nice normal shaped bell curve of performance, and you guys have nothing to worry about. And have a great Thursday.